Pokemon is one of the biggest video game franchises in the world. Seriously, it's a juggernaut. It has an anime series that first broadcasted on April 1st, 1997 and has since released 1,292 episodes and counting, 23 animated movies and 1 live action film, a successful trading card game, and finally a highly successful video game franchise. The video game franchise started all the way back with the release of Pocket Monsters Red and Green on February 27, 1996. Well, that was the Japanese pair. It was Pokemon Red and Blue for the rest of the world, and it has since continued on for 9 generations, with a total of 76 titles including spin-off games, selling a total of 480 million units as of March 2023, making it the 3rd best-selling video game franchise behind Super Mario and Tetris. For those who are unfamiliar with the main line of Pokemon games, let me break it down to you like this. Pokemon and humans live side by side in harmony, and you play as a young and aspiring Pokemon trainer. You're 10 years old and you're about to get your first Pokemon. You train Pokemon for the purpose of battling other trainers to get experience and evolve your Pokemon. Part of the thrill of playing Pokemon is to catch them all. How do you catch them all? You catch Pokemon with Pokeballs. There are tons of different balls, but we won't get into that. Anyway, whilst you're out battling other trainers with your team of 6 Pokemon, you go to various cities and face off against a Pokemon gym leader. Defeating them gets you a Pokemon League gym badge. There are 8 to collect. Once you've defeated all of the gym leaders, you go to the Pokemon League. Face off against the Elite Four and the Pokemon League champion, defeat all of them and the champion, then you become the Pokemon League champion and a Pokemon Master. Whilst you're out on your Pokemon adventure, you normally have to deal with a rival and an evil team whose main goal is some kind of world domination through Pokemon. Also, they're responsible for other antics that have occurred from place to place, like stealing Slowpoke tails in Pokemon Gold and Silver. That's about it. Like I said, as you go through the game, you catch Pokemon using Pokeballs. I'm still not going to get into the different types of Pokeballs, but of course you need to keep track of all the Pokemon you've seen, caught or evolved. There must be some kind of device to help us keep track of everything. Well, there is, and it's called the Pokédex. What is a Pokédex though? Let me break it down to you like this. The Pokédex is an electronic device that is designed to catalogue and provide information regarding the various species of Pokémon. The Pokédex is a portmanteau of the words Pokémon and Index. When you catch a Pokémon, the Pokédex provides you with information such as the Pokémon's height, weight, species type, its Pokédex registry number, and finally a short description about the Pokémon that has been caught. The Pokédex varies from region to region, differs in appearance from region to region, has different functions, catalogues them in different orders, and finally, the information varies from region to region. All in all, the Pokédex is a neat little tool to have. In the beginning, with Pokemon Red, Blue, Green and Yellow, there were 151 Pokemon to catch. As the games went on, across the regions and now 9 generations of Pokemon games, as of Pokemon Scarlet and Violet, there are now 1,024 Pokemon out there for trainers to catch, evolve and train. But, with the information you learn about each Pokemon, some of it can be super cute, such as Vulpix's Pokédex entry from Pokemon Gold. Let's take a look. As it develops, its single white tail gains colour and splits into 6. It is quite warm and cuddly. See? That's rather nice and cute, isn't it? But there are some Pokédex entries that are just dark, terrifying, weird, or just upsetting. With there being over 1,000 Pokemon out there now, I've had to look for some of the darkest, most terrifying, weirdest, and most upsetting Pokédex entries out there across the 9 generations of games, and I've listed 25 Pokemon for this very task I have undertaken. This list will be done in Pokédex registry number order. This list is not based on what I think is the darkest, most terrifying, weirdest, or most upsetting, but I would like to hear your thoughts on those, so drop them in the comments below. Anyway, let's dive right in. Charmander was first introduced in the first generation of games. He is one of the starter Pokemon you can choose and is one of the most beloved Pokemon out there. This Pokédex entry is from Fire Red, the remake of Pokemon Red, and it says, "From the time it is born, a flame burns at the tip of its tail. Its life would end if the flame were to go out." Okay, we're getting off to a bit of a sad start. You're telling me that if Charmander's flame goes out, he dies. I thought Pokemon didn't die, they just faint. No, you can't kill Charmander. Ever. I do remember from the anime though, when Ash first got Charmander, this Charmander was neglected and left in the rain, freezing him where the flame on its tail was slowly going out. Luckily, Ash got there in time, took him to the Pokemon Center where he made a full recovery. A happy ending. Ninetales is the evolution of Vulpix, and it is a beautiful looking Pokemon. Seriously, look at that beautiful fur, its long 9 tails and glowing red eyes. How can this Pokemon have a bad Pokédex entry? This one from Pokemon Red and Blue says it all. Very smart and very vengeful. Grabbing one of its many tails could result in a 1,000 year curse. Bit much there, dude. A 1,000 year curse? Does that mean that when I die, this curse will be passed on to my children and their children and so on until the 1,000 years is over? Throughout the next generations, they do continue to allude to the curse, but have changed a few aspects of the entry. I don't know why, but I always liked Paras and his evolved form Parasect. I guess it was all thanks to the anime with Ash's Paras, who had a lot of fight in it, a will to prove its detractors wrong. Anyway, this Pokédex entry from Ultra Sun is just, well, upsetting. The bug is mostly dead, with the mushroom on its back having become the main body. If the mushroom comes off, the bug stops moving. Yay! Another Pokédex entry about death. How nice. It is very alarming knowing that this Pokemon is practically dead and being slowly killed by the mushroom growing on its back. Exactly what I wanted to know. Gengar is one of the most beloved Pokemon out there. He's mischievous, always got a great big smile on its face, and when hanging with Ghastly and Haunter, they make a very dastardly trio. But not like Casper's uncle's Fatso Stinky and Stretch. Anyway, he's a cheeky little chap, but this entry from Pokemon Pearl is just sinister. Lurking in the shadowy corners of rooms, it awaits chances to steal its prey's life force. Okay, I called Gengar a cheeky chap and referred to this entry as sinister, and for good reason. This entry is almost making Gengar out to be a serial killer, waiting to strike and kill its prey. I mean, you can't get more sinister than that, can you? Personally, I never saw the appeal with Drowzee and his evolved form Hypno. Don't get me wrong, they're great psychic Pokemon to have, but when I have the chance to catch Abra, Kadabra and Alakazam, I always pick the latter trio. Throughout the Pokédex entries for Drowzee across the generations, it always alludes to dreams and eating them, sometimes getting sick from bad dreams. But holy mother of God is this entry from Pokemon Ultra Sun sinister. It can be spotted near recreational facilities, intending to eat the pleasant dreams of children who enjoyed themselves there that day. Okay, first from Ultra Sun we had Parasect dying, and now with Drowzee we've got stalking and lurking near recreational facilities to eat children's dreams. Do you want to calm down, Ultra Sun? Okay, we're all familiar with Cubone and his very upsetting history, so it's not really a surprise I include it in this list. Let's take a look at the entry from Pokemon Yellow. Where's the skull of its deceased mother? Its cries echo inside the skull and come out as a sad melody. If you don't get upset or cry from this Pokédex entry, you are dead inside. This was my first exposure to just how tragic Pokédex entries could get, and it always stuck with me. Do you blame me? He wears the skull of its deceased mother, cries, creating an echo, causing it to come out as a sad melody. Where's the tissues? I love Gyarados. Like, he's awesome. A giant flying water dragon that's just so unbelievably badass looking and strong. Just to think he comes from Magikarp, who is consistently called the most useless Pokemon ever. What a swerve we all got there. The thing with Gyarados is that he does have a bit of a temper, and this Pokédex entry from Pokemon Sapphire makes it crystal clear just how bad his temper tantrums can get. Once Gyarados goes on a rampage, its ferociously violent blood doesn't come until it has burned everything down. There are records of this Pokemon's rampages lasting a whole month. Remember this, kids, don't ever piss off Gyarados because he will literally burn your town or your city to the ground and won't stop for up to a whole month. Also, all other Pokédex entries consistently reference his rage, ability to destroy whole cities, and state how when he evolves from Magikarp, its brain cells change, and this could be the reason why Gyarados is so violent. Either way, don't piss off this Pokemon. I don't know when or how, but Eevee has become the secondary face of the first generation of Pokemon behind Pikachu. Eevee is incredibly cute though, so I can understand why it's the secondary face of the first generation of Pokemon. It's also a very unique Pokemon who can evolve into 8 different types of Pokemon with the use of various evolution stones or conditions. Many of its Pokédex entries allude to this Pokemon's DNA because of its unique ability to evolve into various evolved Pokemon. This Pokédex entry from Pokemon Ultra Moon will blow your mind though. Its genes are easily influenced by its surroundings. Even its face starts to look like that of its trainer. Okay, imagine this if you will. You have an Eevee, and you've had this Eevee for some time, due to reluctance to evolve it. You notice some change about your Eevee, but you can't put your finger on what it is just yet. Time passes. You still notice a change in your Eevee, and let's just say a picture is taken of you and your Eevee. You look at the picture, but your Eevee now looks just like you. That is just messed up. Mewtwo is another Pokemon I love. It's one of the most powerful Pokemon ever created, and I can't stress the word created enough. Its appearance in Pokemon the first movie showed just how dangerous this Pokemon can be, but also how sympathetic it is as well. Its past is also quite tragic, and we can see just how tragic it is from this Pokédex entry from Pokemon Red and Blue. It was created by a scientist after years of horrific gene splicing and DNA engineering experiments. Yep, this Pokemon is a genetic experiment. Scientists found DNA that came from the legendary Pokemon Mew, and they tried to recreate Mew. But who were the scientists hired by? Team Rocket! So their leader, Giovanni, wanted to create the world's most powerful Pokemon. After years of messing around with this Pokemon, its DNA, powers and abilities, it finally snapped and then held a grudge against humanity and set off on a mission to kill all humans and make Pokemon the dominant species of the Earth. Well done, Team Rocket. Here's your good job cake. Houndoom is just badass. I mean, look at it. It's just basically Cerberus. You know, that multi-headed dog from Greek mythology that guards the gate to the underworld. The only difference? Well, it's simple. Houndoom doesn't have multiple heads. Moving on. This Devil Dog from the second generation of Pokemon games is a powerful fire and dark type Pokemon, with constant allusions to the fire it can breathe or the howls it can make and the legends behind them. This entry from Pokemon Gold straight off the bat explained just how dangerous this Pokemon can be. If you are burned by the flames it shoots from its mouth, the pain will never go away. Well, that sucks a whole bunch. If you are burned by the flames from this Pokemon's mouth, you will be in constant pain until you get the sweet release of death. Wonderful. Truly wonderful. It's a walking cactus. Literally a walking cactus. How bad can the Pokedex entry be for Cacturne? Well, this Pokemon, who was introduced in the third generation of Pokemon games, has got probably one of the most sinister entries ever from Pokemon Sapphire. If a traveller is going through a desert in the thick of night, Cacturne will follow in a ragtag group. The Pokemon are biding their time, waiting for the traveller to tire and become incapable of moving. This basically says that if you get lost in the desert or have to make camp in the desert, then you're more than likely going to die as this Pokemon stalks you before it kills you. All other entries continue to allude to its stalking of prey, besides one that states that after living in the desert for so long and becoming accustomed to it, its blood has now become the same substance as sand. From first sight, this marionette Pokemon looks like it could be like Gengar. You know, a bit mischievous. But there's more to this Pokemon. Something tragic, something dark. This entry from Pokemon Emerald makes those tragic and dark statements very clear. An abandoned plush doll became this Pokemon. They are said to live in garbage dumps and wander about in search of the children that threw them away. No. All levels of no. This is basically just child's play. Well, not exactly, but you get the comparison. A plush doll coming to life, living by garbage dumps, searching for the children who threw them away. Safe to say that this Pokemon is capable of holding a grudge with murderous tendencies. Other entries continue to allude to its plush doll past, but also states it will lose its energy if its mouth opens. So, at least we know how to stop this vengeful Pokemon. Open its zipper mouth. Dusclops is the evolved form of Duskull and it evolves into Dusknoir. It's a very unique looking Pokemon. It's like a ghost meets a mummy. As you can imagine, this Pokedex entry from Pokemon Ruby goes on to explain a bit about this Pokemon's anatomy. Dusclops' body is completely hollow. There is nothing at all inside. It is said that its body is like a black hole. This Pokemon will absorb anything into its body, but nothing will ever come back out. Completely hollow. Body is like a black hole. Nothing ever comes out. Like, what? Drifloon and its evolved form Drifblim are basically a balloon and hot air balloon with eyes. There surely can't be anything bad with this Pokemon's Pokedex entries, can it? Well, this entry from Pokemon Heart Gold and Soul Silver shatter that idea about this 4th generation Pokemon. It is whispered that any child who mistakes Drifloon for a balloon and holds on to it could wind up missing. I mean, this Pokemon has the weight of 1.2 kilograms or 2.6 pounds. How could this Pokemon possibly make children end up missing? Other Pokedex entries state that children drag them. Then there's Pokedex entries that state that it takes the children to the afterlife. So this Pokemon must literally summon the strength of departed Pokemon, like, I don't know, Marowak, and then take them to the afterlife. Not heavy children though. Drifloon dislikes them. Okay, I'm just going to get to the nitty gritty of this 4th generation Pokemon because of this Pokedex entry from Pokemon Sun. When it finds humans or Pokemon it likes, it freezes them and takes them to its chilly den, where they become decorations. That is some Texas Chainsaw Massacre or Silence of the Lambs level nightmare fuel. This Pokemon, if it likes humans or Pokemon, will literally freeze them, take them away and keep you as a decoration in its den. That is terrifying. I mean, all we need is for Froslass to skin them alive and it's a perfect match. Darkrai is one evil looking Pokemon, and for good reason. Its design is very nightmarish and it is known as the Pitch Black Pokemon. This Pokemon is literally the thing of nightmares, and the Pokedex entry from Pokemon Pearl makes that clear. Folklore has it that on moonless nights, this Pokemon will make people see horrific nightmares. You're telling me that this Pokemon gets a bit pissy on moonless nights and makes people see horrific nightmares? What a drama queen. I know that sounds like a flippant comment, but to be fair, it is quite terrifying. We don't even know if the nightmares occur when we are asleep or awake. So by that logic, this Pokemon could very well project our worst nightmares as hallucinations. Moving on from the idea of a Pokemon projecting nightmarish hallucinations to a Pokemon who actually does. Meet Musharna. This is a 5th generation Pokemon and it is known as the Drowsing Pokemon. What this Pokemon is described as, judging by its Pokedex entries, is a mix of Drowzee and Darkrai, but nowhere near as scary looking as Darkrai. Here's what its Pokedex entry from Pokemon Sword has to say. When dark mists emanate from its body, don't get too near. If you do, your nightmares will become reality. Thanks for the fair warning here. I don't particularly want my nightmares to become reality, like the Batman villain Scarecrow using his fear toxin. Sliggoo is actually quite a cute looking Pokemon. Makes a change from the nightmare Pokemon we've been going through like Banette or Darkrai. It's strange how this dragon Pokemon, yes, it's a dragon Pokemon, can have a dark, terrifying, weird or upsetting Pokedex entry. I've said that a few times now, so here comes the Pokedex entry from Pokemon Sun for this 6th generation Pokemon. It has trouble drawing a line between friends and food. It will calmly try to melt and eat even those it gets along well with. Aww, bless this Pokemon. It gets confused between its heart and stomach. It must be a sign of love if it tries to melt and eat you. Definitely not the worst Pokedex entry we've had, but it is still a scary thought that your Sliggoo could melt and eat you because it loves you. Buckle up everyone, because with it being Halloween, we're moving to a very Halloween themed Pokemon. Gourgeist, also known as the Pumpkin Pokemon. Yep, a pumpkin can even become a Pokemon. This Pokemon is quite unique as you can get it in varying sizes, but if you manage to catch an average sized Gourgeist, you'll get this Pokedex entry from Pokemon Shield. In the darkness of a new moon night, Gourgeist will come knocking. Whoever answers the door will be swept off to the afterlife. Okay, you got that? On a new moon night, if you hear something or someone knocking at the door, whatever you do, don't answer it. It could be Gourgeist and he will take you to the afterlife. Seriously, why are some Pokemon so obsessed with taking people to the afterlife? I thought humans and Pokemon lived in harmony. Literally another Pokemon that looks like the thing of nightmares, that is also capable of, spoiler alert, killing everyone and everything in its path. It is known as the Destruction Pokemon, and this Pokedex entry from Pokemon Y perfectly sums up Yveltal. When its life comes to an end, it absorbs the life energy of every living thing and turns into a cocoon once more. This Pokemon can cause the apocalypse if it dies. We're forced to keep this Pokemon alive for eternity in fear of commencing the apocalypse. Lovely. I'm not a fan of spiders. Nope. Never have been, never will be. So imagine me seeing Araquanid. The sight of this 7th generation Pokemon sent shivers down my spine. And then I read its Pokédex entry from Pokemon Sword. It launches water bubbles with its legs, drowning prey within the bubbles. This Pokemon can then take its time to savour its meal. Oh hell no! If I was to find myself in that kind of situation, I would rather this big son of a bitch just kill me and eat me. I have a fear of drowning anyway, then mix that with the fact that this Pokemon will literally take its time with eating me as it savours every last bite, terrifies me to my very soul. Bewear is super cute looking. Look at it! It's a giant pink and brown teddy bear! But this Pokemon either doesn't know its own strength or just can't control its strength. Its Pokédex entry from Pokemon Moon states, this Pokemon has the habit of hugging its companions. Many trainers have left this world after their spines were squashed by its hug. This is just a giant shame. Look at it! It's so huggable and looks like all it wants to do is hug you. Yet, if it does hug you, it will destroy your spine and kill you. Just perfect. Other Pokédex entries allude to its immense strength and how it is considered as the most dangerous Pokemon in the Alola region. Still, all I want to do is just give it a hug. We've all got happy memories of going to the beach as a kid, playing in the sand, and building sandcastles. I tried digging a hole once like Joey from Friends. Now imagine if that sandcastle you built suddenly became alive. That's Palossand, a living sandcastle Pokemon. I thought I saw it all, especially after Spoink, which is just a pig's head on a spring. Then I saw Palossand. Anyway, here's the Pokédex entry from Pokemon Sword. Palossand is known as the Beach Nightmare. It pulls its prey down into the sand by controlling the sand itself, and then it sucks out their souls. In the world of Pokemon, this would put anyone off from going to the beach. Whether it was to catch Pokemon, battle them, or even go for a nice break, no one would go. I wouldn't, knowing that this Pokemon can control the sand and suck out my soul. A horrifying thought. When I first saw Mimikyu, I was quite confused. I didn't know if he was being positioned as a possible mascot for Pokemon due to its Pikachu-like appearance or not. Obviously I got that very wrong. Then, when you learn more about the disguised Pokemon, you find out something very tragic, yet very dark as well. You see, this Pokemon has two forms, a busted and disguised form. Depending on the form, the Pokédex entry changes, similar to Gourgeist and its varying sizes. But here's what it says about Mimikyu in its disguised form from Pokemon Ultra Moon. A gust of wind revealed what hides under this Pokemon's rag to a passing trainer, who went home and died painfully that very night. What we learn from the Pokédex entry in both its busted and disguised forms is that this Pokemon is hiding underneath a rag, fashioned into a Pikachu to appear less scary. This Pokemon is perpetually sad. It works tirelessly to fix its broken neck or rag throughout the night. If its neck is broken, he will seek revenge. Then, to make matters worse, this Pokemon will kill anyone who looks at the Pokemon underneath the rag. Some have died from the shock. Some have died from a mysterious disease. And as I said before, some have died painfully. Death occurs very quickly after looking at the Pokemon underneath the rag. It is a very lonely Pokemon and wears the rag in an attempt to get closer to people or Pokemon, but this makes it appear more creepy. A truly sad existence for this Pokemon. We've come to our final Pokemon, and it is the 8th generation Pokemon, Hattrem. Upon looking at this Pokemon for the first time, it's just incredibly cute looking. Big braided hair, a fun smile, brightly coloured and very small. Then again, cute characters can always have a very violent side. So what makes this Pokemon so violent? This Pokédex entry from Pokemon Sword says it all. No matter who you are, if you bring strong emotions near this Pokemon, it will silence you violently. According to another entry, being hit by one of its braids can knock out a professional boxer. A professional boxer! Like, holy smokes! Show any form of emotion and this tiny Pokemon will knock your ass out harder than Mike Tyson in his prime or Ivan Drago killing Apollo Creed in Rocky IV. What have we learned about these Pokédex entries? That the world of Pokemon is filled with such terrors, nightmares, devastating creatures, beings capable of destroying entire cities and bring about the apocalypse if they die. Pokemon is a terrifying world to be a part of, and to think that 10-year-old children go out into the world, unsupervised I might add, to catch these creatures capable of such destruction, power, abilities and the rest to battle and train makes it unfathomable to think. This is a franchise that is marketed to kids, and you know what? Even with all of these entries and more, we still love these games. They are fantastic games. You think about the entries and you see the dark, the upsetting, weird, and just terrifying entries. It's a perfect balance. Life and the world of Pokemon isn't all rainbows, unicorns and sunshine. You need the dark aspects of life to counterbalance the good. Pokemon is, and always will be, awesome. Thank you very much for joining me on this very different Pokemon video here on World-1 Entertainment, and I hope that you have enjoyed it. If you have, give this video a like. Share the video as well, because the more shares, the more views, the more the channel continues to grow and the more that I get to do this for you. Subscribe to World-1 Entertainment, and don't forget to check out the other content that is available, because you never know, there might be something you like. And if you do subscribe, hit that notification bell so you are notified about any and all content that goes live onto the channel. Drop us a comment below as well, and let's have a conversation. Thank you very much for joining me, and I will see you next time. And don't forget, gotta catch 'em all. Gotta catch 'em all. Take it easy, everyone.